Good evening, dear panel members. It's a pleasure to have you as part of this exciting panel discussing a very relevant issue. And welcome once again, my dear Nathan, Manoj, and Aniket. Okay, we're going to discuss this topic, very relevant topic, which I think is humanizing and workplace engagement in virtual work models. And before that, let me introduce the panel members. We have Mr. Nathan, who is Partner and Chief Talent Officer at Deloitte India. And he is also the President of National HRD, which is the largest group of HR professionals in India. We have Mr. Manoj Sharma, who is Co-Chairman ASSOCHAM, National Council of Industrial Relations Policy and Reforms. He also works with Government of India on power sector reforms, and is heading HR for Adani Electricity. We have Aniket Sudhanshu, who is a senior analyst at NASSCOM. And I'll be the moderator of this panel. My name is Prasanth. I am a co-founder in Asynithis, an advisor Zing HR, and on the advisory board of NASSCOM community. So we will be discussing this topic, and to just set the context, in a very interesting times that we're living in. I only say that the pace of change that we are witnessing in the last 2 or 3 years has given a new perspective to life, work, and society. If you look at from an economic point, it's very interesting to find that the market value for a discovery platform is perhaps more than the things that they are discovering. The market value for a delivery platform is perhaps more than the companies whose goods they are delivering. And I'm not getting into the right and wrong of it or the correctness of it, but it's a phenomena. It's an interesting phase that we are living in. There are great opportunities for value creation and enough triggers for value destruction. And this has actually impacted how we look at work, how we are looking at workplace and workforce. The 3 key drivers of change, according to me, is the concept of organization as a whole has changed. Previously, organization had a boundary. We knew who was creating value, where value was getting created. But today we are having organizations which are fluid in nature. The focus has changed from who and where to how the value is created. Your partner can create a value, your customer can create a value, your non-employees can create a value. So the entire concept of an organization has changed. It's a fluid organization. The second part is organization is not just a creator of economic value. Organization today is a creator of social value and also what I call psychological value, psychological capital as they talk about it. Wherein the role of empathy has increased, wherein the role of collaboration has increased manifold. And as they say, organization is not an entity. An organization is a platform for people to come together, collaborate, and create value. And driving this entire change from 0 to 1 is technology. And that's the context in which we will be discussing how technology can create a workplace which is more human. Because while there are a lot of positives in how technology can enable and connect, there are challenges as well on privacy, on security. And do we dehumanize the workplace using technology? So these are some queries that I have. These are some things that we are going to discuss more and learn from experts who are there on the panel. And with that, let me, request Nathan to put in his introductory comment, post which I will request Manoj and then Aniket to give your introductory comment, and after that I will be asking some questions and queries. Please, Nathan.
Thank you, Prasanth. What can I say? We are living through one of the best of times and the worst of times, as Charles Dickens would say. In the last almost 2 years, business models have been turned on its head. But there is one aspect of the business which is to do with people, which has also changed, but at a pace which is far more rapid. People are the function of what happens to technology, because technology by itself does not generate more technology, but people do. The way that we are in this world, connected with others, building relationships, living through one of the worst of times, ensuring that there is a certain connectedness, at the same time, trying to find a purpose for ourselves. When we are closeted in a room all by ourselves, we cannot move out of our houses. And even if we do, in a time when everybody says the lockdown has been lifted, always walking around with masks and so on, how do we, when we sit down and work, because most of what we've been doing is we've been sitting at home and working from home, at least the majority of the people. What has happened to the times when we have learned new skills, we have learned what it is to partake in the agony of others, in the happiness of others, and most importantly, paying attention to the present. In a world where technology has gone leaps and bounds, and in a way managed to keep the whole envelope together in spite of all the disruptions. And I'm not saying that it's the best of things to happen. I would very much love to be in a room with Manoj and Prasanth and Aniket, because at that point in time, you can read each other. There are the non-verbal gestures that happen. There's a little bit of backslapping that happens. When there is a cup of tea that is taken and shared with another, there is a smile that happens. Now, despite best efforts, you try to do this on a Zoom call, it doesn't happen as well. As we get into this wonderful debate of what really is happening with us in the world, which is about technology, and how do we get related, all I can say is we are going through some very interesting times full of opportunities, because things can only get better from here on. With this, back to you, Prasanth.
Thanks, Nathan. Very insightful. Purpose, living in the present. These are some of the words that I picked up. And opportunities. I think very interesting. Manoj, your opening comments?
Yeah. Unprecedented situation definitely has brought unprecedented change in the way we used to think. Unprecedented systems and policies that have we are forced to formulate that. Unprecedented decision making that has forced, unprecedented technologies that has come, the disruptive changes that we never thought. Like Nathan said, it's a good time in bad time, worst time. So the good time, I could see that all good is happening around. So this would not have emerged unless this worst have come. This worst we have faced, and that is how this good has emerged. What Nathan has also said about the business models, in India and abroad, we never touched about the business models. This unprecedented times has forced businesses, the corporates, the organizations to change the business models. That's the most unprecedented thing that is happening around. The TV company is getting into electronic cars, similar to the Tesla. The Facebook is getting into the loans, the micro loans. Nobody has imagined that they will change the business model itself. I'm not talking about the operating model itself. Now, this unprecedented situation, can it be? You earlier we had been able to figure out who is my competitor in the market. And today we cannot figure out who is my competitor. Those are unseen situations are bringing or giving the birth to the unseen competitors. So that means what will change and what will be the differentiators? As on today, we are thinking about technology, right? Technology is a differentiator, but I still feel people are the differentiators. Why I feel that people are differentiators? The adoption to the technology, unless that happen in the organization, this will not happen. Now, we are talking about, to make the technology more simpler so that it becomes more adaptable. And that is how that will become the differentiators in the hands of either the customers. So we are thinking about the customer experience, or we are talking about the employee experience itself. There is no dearth of talent that used to be a statement of the past. Now, there is a scarcity of talent because so much surplus talent is available. So every organization now filtering that with the lens of those technology landscapes, that the scope itself has got narrowed down, and the filtering of talent has also got narrowed down. They want a very precise talent to take up their technology initiatives in the organization. The generalization that we used to see in the selection process, maybe the 60-70%, if people are matching the profile, we used to take it up. Now people are going with 80%, 90% of the profiling. And that is how the necessity of machine learning and artificial intelligence is emerging. And that is what is going to help. So the adoption of technology, that is the as a differentiator in the coming time. It is not the cyber security. It is the technology adoption by the people who are responsible for the cyber security. And people will still remain the differentiator in any organization. We have robotics in one of our plants. Now, for the last 5 years, we are still putting our heads together that how that robotic technology, that we had put in 5 years before, still that has not been very friendly to the people who are adopting that. Because those people who are put to adopt, they are straightway coming from the ITI institutions. They have never seen robotics. Now, as on date also, no ITI is teaching them robotics. Although it is a simpler process to pick up the, solar panels and put it up together for the purpose of panelization. Now, the process which appears to be simple, but by adoption, it is becoming so challenging. It is not easy. Even the engineering colleges, how many engineers are in the campus or in the college itself, they are exposed to robotic operation. As on date, there is hardly any college I can find and figure out by name. Yes, no, it is not there. So everything, if that has to happen when the people have to join in the industry, the challenge is still that remains as an adoption of that technology that we are thinking that is going to disrupt the entire world, or maybe that is forcing the business models to change. As a culture, if we are thinking that if we acquire, so my experience is more on the acquisitions also within Adani. Now, to make a cultural change in the organization, if we think that, by taking my older people from the organization, from the Adani group itself, can come and change the culture of the organization, that is not possible. That is impossible. So what is that will be a triggering factor for the legacy organization of 100 years to make that cultural shift. I think that is what is very important. So whether we want to work physically to cater to the consumers, or we want to give an experience through video conferencing so that they need not to come to our places, to the customer care centers, and we can virtually interact with them, because that virtual concept that has come from a physical, face-to-face touch basing with the consumer, so that satisfaction that the customer gets when he meets, besides talking on the phone, he never leverages that interaction unless he meets personally. So when we are
Absolutely.
talking about those touch points, and the same applies with the employees as well, so that itself is a challenge. The organizations have to find ways and means that how technology can be leveraged, and then how the adoption can take place in creating a differentiating factors among the competitors when they want to not only survive
Fantastic.
and sustain, but to grow in future.
Very nice. I think you covered a lot of points. I think the technology adoption by people stands out actually, and that is going to be critical in the days to come.
Well,
We'll come back to some of these things, Manoj. Aniket, can I quickly have your opening remarks?
Sure. So I think I'll continue to the point that Manoj was making in terms of the touch points, right? So what we have seen in the virtual work models is that, there's so much conversations happening around the role of water coolers in employee communication. That is, I don't think even the intended functionality has been discussed as much in detail as much we have talked about the water cooler conversations. And, to take it as a silver lining in terms of how it is happening is earlier it was given, employee communication and engagement in the setup was kind of given, but now with the challenges that the COVID has thrown at us, what is happening is now these are getting institutionalized, with organizations actively focusing on workforce engagement and putting in efforts to increase communication and engagement through virtual setups, meetings, town halls, and all of this kind of, if you look at it, is a very, very positive development as we keep moving and perfecting the so-called future operating models.
Nathan, you talked about purpose, right? And it's such a powerful thing for alignment of workforce. Okay. Now we have strange situations because there's a set of an organization that has been there. We have met people and we worked till March 2020 together. And after that, we've been at our houses working from home and what have you. In this last 1.5 years, we've also recruited people who have never seen the organization, who's never seen the workplace, who's never interacted with anyone on a one-to-one basis. All we've done is interview on a Zoom and get him into the organization, get him or her into the organization. Practically, how do we align these people into the larger purpose of the organization? It's a very operational question, but these are some of the challenges that I've actually, encountered in the last few months.
Hey, Prasanth, that's a $1 million question. So I'll tell you, I'll take you back to a movie that I saw some years ago, The Devil Wears Prada, where Anne Hathaway is standing in front of a huge edifice of a building, looking up, and then she walks into that room, and that room is a crazy room, and then you find Meryl Streep in one corner, and she's completely staggered by what she sees. And her entire intention is, I'm going to come to this place because look at the building I'm going to be working in. Today, no buildings. You can be in the biggest of buildings, you can be in the smallest of rooms, and you need to have a culturalization and alignment with what you have as the goals of an organization, as also the needs of an employee, all done virtually. So you asked me an operational question. So perhaps the way that we have tried to do that is to stay connected with an employee. And connection is a two-way street. It's not like you switch on a bulb and then it starts burning. It doesn't happen that way. So it's got to be something where you engage with a person one-on-one, and that happens at the level where the manager is interacting with that individual or a team member is working with that individual. Engagement also happens in teams. And how do we get teams to get together to know that? Engagement also happens if I go and ask a person, hey, what do you think about this? Because everybody wants to be valued for what they bring to the table, bring to an organization. So how do we interact with such a person and seek their valued feedback in some way? So things like surveys. We have never had so many surveys in our lives as we have today. More important, it's not the surveys. After the surveys, what would you do? Going back and saying, hey, this is what we heard. This is what he said. This is what we heard. We have never felt so connected with things like rewards and recognition as we are doing today. Because today we have technology. What technology does is, earlier it used to happen in the real world where you have people sitting down and then you call people, there's a CEO or the departmental head coming up and talking. Now it happens today in the virtual world, but the speed of communication is almost like the speed of light, and therefore that's important. A couple of others, and this is where the rubber hits the road, and I think Manoj also spoke about it. I think we need to get connected at the level of empathy for an employee. And empathy is not about just pontification that these are the values that we hold, this is the culture that we are. No, empathy is in the moment. If a person says empathy is respect for an individual, and somebody says, hey, listen, I have something beyond 6 o'clock, make sure that you leave that time free. We are also doing a very interesting thing. It's called each one reach one. It's a very, very simple thing. In a week, set aside 30 minutes, and in this 30 minutes, you call anybody. So I can call you Prasanth, or I can call Manoj, I can call Aniket. This is generally time where you can connect with another. And by the way, I can speak about anything on earth. I don't have to speak about my work. I can speak about my anxieties. I can speak about the good things that are happening in my life. Also, I can check with others what's happening in their lives. In a way, what is happening is people are getting to understand the culture of an organization not by the notes that they read or the videos that talk about it. And incidentally, nobody has the time to watch a 15-minute video anymore. If anything is more than 3 minutes, if it is not interesting, in 30 seconds, I will switch off that video if people do not want to listen to me, because it just seems like a lot of things being thrown at me without really connecting with it. So that is how we start to build communications, connectedness, engaging with people. Last but not the least, letting people know that we value them. And therefore this huge need that we have, and I'm sure that in the days when going forward, when we get into a hybrid mode, we will still get back to our offices, we will still be finding an opportunity to catch up with each other. And one more thing, and then I promise I will shut up, Prashant. You see, today's world, we have to teach people issues of boundary management. People don't know. Earlier, people used to come at 9 o'clock and people used to leave at 6 o'clock. It was well understood, and you could have different timings in different organizations, but it was very well defined. People knew it because they have to spend time in a train or a bus or a car or a scooter or whatever coming to work or getting back. Today, we have to tell people beyond 6 o'clock, do not hold meetings, because people still will have to be with their families. Now, you make a statement that between 1 and 2 is lunchtime for somebody, and be absolutely sure that you will not have any meeting out there, then you're connecting with that individual because you're respecting that individual. And I could go on and on, but suffice it to say, how do you really connect with an employee, even though that person has not been with you across the table physically, goes a very long way. Back to you, Prashant.
Thank you, Nathan. That's very useful, I think. And Manoj, if I can ask you a question, you talked about adaptation, and that's a very interesting way of looking at engagement. Because one facet of engagement is also the reskilling and upskilling of people. Because there can be no engagement if you're not even skilled for the job. I know how would technology help in this upskilling, or conversely, do people get overawed by technology? Do people how would a person with about in an employee who's never handled a robot, for example, come to the workplace and start handling a robots?
Skilling, reskilling, and upskilling, I think that's going to be a mantra for the organization who are legacy based like us in the utility sector. And there are many organizations which are still struggling to make that adaptation happen in the era, except the Gen Z. That is almost they are technology adoptive, even if they have not handled. But I think somewhere they are trying their hand, dipping their hand in all those technologies which are already available in the open access model. The organizations like us, where the average age is around 49, and the productivity norms are, far from where we could have been actually, where technologies are playing a major role. From upskilling point of view, the ease of using that technology, that is going to make a difference. Now, we have seen the span of, we have seen the span of the earlier Facebook. We have seen the span many those technologies which were existing, which came, and then they wiped out from the system. Same way, if we are planning and technology in the system, I think that is to be seen from more from employee experience point of view or customer point of view, customer experience point of view. If my customer is able to use the payment gateway and within a minute is able to transfer the money through the system, I think that's an experience, and that is a user experience, and that is a differentiator. And the same way, if I see the upskilling of people, we were actually struggling with one of the job allocation mobile app based technology. So what I'm saying, we try to use work allocation technology, mobile app based technology. The differentiator in selling the concept of mobile app based technology for work allocation, so that became successful when we had allowed people to use as a pilot and see that how geotagging can help in streamlining the work allocation itself. That was number one. Number two, how the work itself, what they are discharging in the field. Like we are operating in 400 square kilometers, there are people who spread in 400 square kilometers in different zones and divisions, and how they have to move from one place to another place and how the work is distributed to them. Now the differentiator is that when an employee is lifting almost like 10 to 14 meters in his hand where the vehicle is not approachable, now if that is numbered and that appears on his mobile itself, that job becomes very easy. He need not to lift so much of meter reading appliances or meter readers itself to go to the customer doorstep. Now to make it easy to use, easy to operate, so that ease of doing the operations, that will actually solve our upskilling challenges, especially in legacy organization or in any organization where we are thinking, because agility in the organization is going to touch the nerve of the entire system. Now, if we are talking about the agility in the organization, but something has to happen, something has to trigger, whether that is at the policy level, at the system level, at the process level, or even to the technology adoption itself. So that upskilling means ease of doing the operation. When we are saying technology, when it's the touch of button, somebody can do the operations. That is what upskilling means when we are living in that competitive world where a lot of differentiators are there from or as a competitive advantage through the people. That what we are trying to leverage the technology itself.
Thanks. And Aniket, a quick question to you as well. You talked about conversation. Do you really think conversations in through technology can replace or even substitute the conversations in real person to person? Is it even possible? Why are we even attempting it?
See, if you ask me personally, I consider myself as a techno optimist. I believe technology can go much beyond what we have achieved so far in terms of, the confines of geography and boundary that used to kind of create a barrier between employee communication across places. With technology we can actually overcome and lead to the next level. But obviously the best of the both worlds, where the hybrid comes into place, where you have physical in-person contact as well as the technology bridging the divide while you are working at a different location, is where the best of both worlds come together.
Okay, so you carefully avoided my direct question. Okay, but that's fine. Okay. Now then, I think this will be the last round of questions. So one question which I have is, then what are the challenges that you see? Given that technology is able to make the connection, of course, technology has allowed the world to carry on, right? But there are challenges, right? There are challenges of privacy, there are challenges of security, there are challenges of mental health is a challenge, and so on and so forth. What have you actually seen in your organization and the organizations that you interact with? What are some of the challenges, and how can we possibly address them as HR people?
I think I'm going to put this in 3 buckets. I'll take each one of them. One is, when you talk about technology and connect, much as I see this as a very powerful way of connecting, you look at any Zoom call that we have, we are seeing each other. There is a whole host of connection that happens, but the nuances of what happens in a non-verbal behavior, those gestures, are completely missed.
Absolutely.
All of us on this call, we must have interviewed so many people on end. When a person walks into a room, the way the person walks in, the way the person is seated, that is missed. When you're sitting in a room in a room full of people, including people in conversations, by the very look, you can find out whether something is amiss. That is what technology is unable to do. I mean, whether this was the world of the VCs, the virtual world, all those, even today, those are difficult. So you just need those in person. So that's one, which is a lot about the connect. Second is the one about the frequency of these connects. Now, if you keep badgering me with your emails, there are so many Zoom calls that you have in a day that people are plain tired. There is ennui that sets in. The level of what I call as concentrated work and focus that we used to have pre-pandemic is given way to distractions. We are on a Zoom call, but the propensity to look at the mails that have come in is possibly the highest ever in our entire lives. Why? Because of this disruption that has happened. So I think technology has space. So this is the one which is about the connect. Second, if you're truly looking to develop people, then as much as technology has done a world of difference, because you can have all the kind of learning on the palm of your hand in a mobile interface, anytime, anywhere, any content that you have, technology makes it happen seamlessly. But it can never replace what we so carefully do, what Manoj so carefully does, what Prasanth you have done in your yesteryears, how do you really develop people? A craftsman can never learn anything going through any of these e-learnings, e-programs, watching technology. There is only as much, because you got to learn by doing. The whole model of apprenticeship, learning by doing, having people. And by the way, don't take me wrong, I think the best thing that has happened ever in our living history is the fact that collaboration happens almost instantly. You don't have to teach collaboration. My organization is almost 85% millennials. They don't have to seek permission. They are not looking at anybody coming over the shoulder. But it's not the same. We would like people to be developed into leaders of tomorrow. And there is a bit of sufferance. So this is the second one, which is the third element is the one around empathy. So connect. I talked about develop. I'm now going to talk about care. Care is, technology has made care seamless. You can get anything that you want, any program on mental wellness, anything that is there. But the one about care is somebody calling each other and putting an arm around the shoulder of a person, or making the person sit down in front of you and look into that person's eye and just be human. The humanizing that happens through those interfaces are best done face to face. And as much as I believe that technology has done a lot for us, I think these are those interfaces of connect, develop, and care, which is somewhat to be supplemented by an interface. So those, I'm trying to keep this really short, Prashant. So that's what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. And Manoj, you know, in the context of the organization that you are in, you also are in midst of acquisition of airports and all the ports and waterways. So, you know, how do you manage the connect part, which Nathan talked about a bit, the development part, empathy part, especially in the context of an acquisition or taking over an organization? Isn't it more challenging now? And can technology help solve that problem?
Nathan has, I think, very precisely touched upon the humanizing part, the empathy part, the care part. I think that will still remain a challenge. Now, the customers who wants to be personally there, that has not been eliminated in the system. Although that is how the emergence of virtual meetings through video conferencing we are planning to start. We had already started in pandemic, because there is still some connect a customer wants to make. It is not that company wants to make. The customer wants to make and express face to face. And that is what is missing in the entire system. And that is one will remain challenge, although our payment gateways has helped us to move from 35% to almost 80% of the payments that we are receiving right now. But internally, if we are talking to the people, the employees, whether that is a direct discussions of the performance counseling, the career discussions, the individual development plans, the assessment centers, whether it's the coaching and the mentoring, all these things are still the major element of personal connect is missing. So what Nathan has said, I'm just reiterating on that and not supplementing, but definitely the way people come, you can understand from their body language that what exactly is going on in his spine, why his chin is low, why is not making up a cheerful, the way he was walking, he used to walk and everything. So that element is missing. Straightway, just watching from the, screen to screen doesn't give the entire picture of the human. Human is not a nut bolt and technology. Human is full of emotions. So that emotional intent the emotional content of that, what he wants to express in many ways, that does not, get deciphered from the technology. So as of now, we can talk about artificial intelligence. They can, there are technologies, they still catch your emotions. But that too, the algorithm that has been written in the back of it only to that extent. But what will happen to that when the person is not expressing that emotion, that still it is hidden inside. So that elements that get resolved when we have one-to-one connection, one-to-one talk. There are many, earlier times also we used to feel that there is a communication gap. Now, where this emotional gap will emerge, how this element will come across, all those cognitive abilities and everything that will get resolved through machine learning and artificial intelligence. But what will happen to this part, I think this will remain. I really do not know how to predict that, but definitely we'll definitely miss that. Second aspect of it, what I spoke about upskilling part, I think with the emergence of the e-learning market, almost like $400 billion that is being estimated. Now the content that is being thrown in the minds of people, even if we are trying to say, okay, use Precipio, use Coursera, and there are flood of courses available, and they are allowed to choose any course. Now, there is a big gap in this. Even the organization as of now does not know that what technologies will emerge and what we will take it forward to the consumer in the interest of organization or in the interest of my stakeholders. Now, employee is not aware that which technologies are emerging, right? Now, the employees are either choosing the fundamentals of those technologies, if we are talking about digitalization, or they don't want to get expert in that technology because they are already functional, they carry some functional expertise. Now, the gap is getting engaged in all those learning courses, still there is a dilemma whether that course is fulfilling his current functional competency or the future, what is the emerging technologies. So those emerging technologies are still not visible in those curriculums or in e-learning courses, what organization or the research or the entire world is looking at, because those are still at R&D stages. It is similar to, it reminds me when I was given charge of the 10 ITIs in Maharashtra, rather we were planning to have the entire ITIs of the country through LL Mittal Group. When I was working with Ispat Industries, the government said, Mr. Sharma, we can't allow any private organization to buy the ITIs of the country, but we can experiment by giving you the 10 ITIs with 1 CR budget for each ITI to create a center of excellence. Can you imagine all ITIs, although they were already under the banner of COE, and they were training the ITI candidates on Pentium 4, 5, 7, whatever, and the technologies had already changed. Now the route that was coming in those ITIs, like they were approaching the corporates that whichever, laptops or the desktops are, forget laptops, the desktops, those are getting redundant. They wanted to take it from those corporates so that they can run to some extent some training in the ITIs. I said, can you label or remove the label of center of excellence at least from here? At least we should not abuse the label and we are creating a center of excellence. Now the same thing is happening. When I say this, huge transformation that has to come to our education sector. When I was representing the parliamentary committee, the ASSOCHAM in parliamentary committee.
In the interest of time, can I ask you to just, summarize your statement?
Yeah. So the major challenge that still lies in upskilling is what freedom we are allowing employees to choose the programs, whether that is really relevant or not, that's a big question mark. And to stay relevant to the market, the organizations are still at the threshold of deciding that which technologies will take them to the future? That's a big question mark.
Thank you, Manoj. Aniket, coming to you for the last time. I think, we heard Nathan, we heard Manoj, and you are an optimist of technology. Okay. So I'll ask you a simple question. Trust is such an important factor in leadership and in cross communication and collaboration. How do you build trust through technology in an organization context?
So I think, Prashant, one thing that is the underlying fact is that technology is not a replacement for how the work was done or how the human engagements are done. Technology is more of an enabler in how do you improvise and improve all the aspects, be it trust for this matter. So what technology can do is bring out the very important transparencies, bring out the analytics on what is happening and how it is happening by using emerging technologies such as AI, ML, and then using your own human experience to kind of develop on that to make it more, robust and stronger, but not a replacement of that.
Okay. 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 Okay, and you don't find, for example, let me just follow up with another question, quick question to you, is that, uh, for example, when we recruit now, right, and we can use AI tools to scan through the social media platforms, for example, we can use AI tool to go in deep into the candidate to find out more about the candidate. Is it not intruding privacy? And in such a scenario, I'm doing it for a candidate, and that candidate is going to be my employee in the future. Is it not, are you not starting on an erosion of trust?
So I think, with technology, privacy has always been a challenge, especially in the internet age. We have all kind of experienced the technology, the lines of privacy getting blurred. But I think, with the pandemic and the way the technology is now intruding, it is also an opportunity in terms of how we refine the processes or bring in the right checks and balances so that we have access to the right information and doesn't invade into a personal space or a privacy, set the boundaries for the privacy. And I think conversations have already started happening on those ends. It's just that as the problem gets, you can only have a solution for a problem when it becomes very obvious and very prominent, and that's the time that we are now started to live in. And I think as these challenges become more prominent, technology itself will also find a solution for this as well.
Good, good, gentlemen. Thanks for your time. I would like to just summarize by only saying one thing, and many of us have said that in the last 1 hour, saying that technology is a great enabler, but ultimately, what is going to sustain are the basic human factors, which I call hero, which is hope, empathy, resilience, and optimism. And I think as HR people and leaders, we need to use technology to build this hero. On that note, thank you once again, gentlemen, Nathan, Manoj, Aniket, for your inputs and for your contribution. I'm sure this will actually go to a large audience and they will take and they'll make use of this inputs. Thank you once again. Bye. God bless.